Yay! It's gonna
Are
work
we
this
live now?
time.
Yay! Thank God. If we push it off another week, that means another week of remembering this book, and I'd rather not. Yeah, I've written down some talking points, but I feel like... Oh my God. Okay, so I forgot to mute the YouTube video on the other side, so I just heard my voice again, so...
Yeah, I'm trying to mute it too, and it's not working.
Oh, it's not?
Okay, I had to do the same thing. Like, wasn't muting and it was throwing me off, but we're good.
Okay, so we can either hop right into the discussion, or we can wait a little longer. What do you guys think?
I think we should give them a few minutes.
I think we should give it a few minutes, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, going off of our discussion before we went live, I 100% am planning on going to BookCon next year because I get major FOMO, and, you know, it's a lot, but I really enjoyed Y'all West. So we'll see. Hopefully I can go. And I might go to BookNet Fest. So. I mean, for me, it's about meeting other people and, like, meeting authors, but...
Yeah. Oh, Gisselle, so I already told Taylor this, but I have, like, a really bad cold right now, so I apologize in advance for how bad my voice sounds. So, just so you're aware.
Powering through for us.
Yeah. Well, like, I gotta recharge my energy by ranting about this book.
Yeah. We'll just blame the Lost Colony for everything bad going on in our lives. You're sick, the Lost Colony
this book
did
is cursed. Yeah.
YouTube didn't work last week.
It's this book. I didn't... Oh, never mind. I didn't move my books behind me like I usually do. There we go.
I have like a frozen Baja Blast, and this little thing, also The Fault of the Lost Colony, has given me like 3 brain freezes.
Lost Colony.
I don't even remember the last time I got a brain freeze. My husband gets them all the time because he is the most impatient eater ever. And I never get them. It's probably been a few years. And I got it like 3 times. Like, what is happening? I would take like 1 bite and it was just like instant like pain. And I'm like, ow!
Yep. I know. I have like the strongest like peppermint tea right now. And I like cannot smell or taste anything. Like, it's like drinking water. Like,
oh no. Just a cup of hot water.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, hey. Hi, Steve. It was a great time joining you. I had so much fun. Thank you for dropping by. Awesome. I guess we can get started now. Although my message didn't send. That's fun. That's great. Can you not see my message on the thing or no?
Nope.
I don't see yours, Taylor.
It's the Lost Colony. It did it. Hi. Let's try this again. Bye. And it's not posting. This is fantastic.
Wow.
So I guess you guys are going to be in charge of the comments.
Okay.
Fantastic.
This is such a shit show. I love it. Not our fault. It's all YouTube and the Lost Colony.
They're working together. They're in cahoots.
Which is fine, because last week, instead of doing the live stream, because YouTube wasn't working, we ended up just like all 3 talking on here for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was a good conversation.
It was basically just like a Skype call. It was so much fun. Like,
and then it accidentally got posted to my channel.
Yeah.
After the fact. YouTube is such a mess.
But it seems like we have a good amount of people, so we can start right now if you want.
All right. Well, it's your channel.
I think that's...
You know what? That's true. I should do something. Hi, guys. So thank you so much for coming to the Artemis Fowl read-along. live show discussion. Today we're talking about Book 5, The Lost Colony. And I guess we should start with our overall thoughts. So who would like to go first? I'm sure they're all going to be pleasant.
Should we go in order of who liked it the most to who liked it the least, or other way around?
Did we even discuss who liked it the most?
We know we all liked it the most. Cara rated it like 4 stars.
You did?
No. I think I gave it 3.
Did you?
3?
I think
I
you
think
gave
I
it 3
3 or 3.5.
Yeah. I did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
3.5.
I still haven't rated it.
Start on a positive note.
Yeah, I still haven't rated it, so I'm assuming you're. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I gave it 3.5 stars. And this is my least favorite in the series so far. And I do remember it being one of my least favorites in the series. So it wasn't a surprise for me or anything. But the reason I didn't give it a 2 or something is because I had forgotten a lot of the really funny scenes in this one. I think because it was my least favorite. So I never reread it or I rarely reread it. So that was more fun. And I did really like number 1 as a character. I thought he was really endearing. He's just this gentle-hearted nerd and I love him. But yeah, all the things I didn't like about it, it was weird, but that didn't bother me. I have an issue with the way Owen Colfer just brought in this antagonist who basically feels like a book 1 Artemis, but with none of the emotional depth. And it's I was excited, okay, we have more female characters, that's great. But it felt like he tried to cram in all the character development we've had for Artemis over 4 now 5 books into 1 book, and it felt really weird. Yeah, so those were my main issues. Is it felt I don't know, it felt like Owen Colfer was let's try this and see what happens, and it was not my favorite thing. So yeah, 3.5 stars because I admit it has some good qualities. I don't hate it as much as I did when I was younger, but I still have some issues with it.
Let's see. Gisselle, what did you give it? I gave it 2. I think I'm going to give it 2.5 stars.
I gave it 2 stars.
Okay, so I guess I'm next. So actually, the beginning of this book I thought was really strong. I really liked it. I really loved number 1. I thought he was really cute. And I liked the concept of Minerva, but the execution wasn't great. And I also really hated Artemis Fowl's weird crush on her. Absolutely gross. Disgusting. But honestly, after the first, I want to say 30% of the book, just too much was happening at any given time. I didn't care about Billy Kong. I didn't care about Minerva. Didn't care really about the plight of the demons, unless it was number 1. Then I cared, but didn't care about them. There was too much happening at once, and it was confusing and jumbled and just an all-around mess. And I think Owen Colfer should have picked a lane and stuck to it, and he didn't. He just kept adding stuff.
Yeah, I forgot how much I hated Billy Kong. Yeah, I blocked that out of my mind. I hated that whole arc. And I hated the way the book ended, too. I hate that ending.
Yes, the ending can die.
It pisses me off. I remember being enraged about it when I read it when I was 12 or whatever. I think I read it right when it came out. I hated it then, and I still hate it now. So.
Okay, Gisselle, your thoughts? Is Gisselle frozen?
I don't know.
You guys are cutting out a lot.
Are we?
For me, so just I don't know. I don't know if I'm cutting out for you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a little choppy now.
Are you kidding me?
We can
Am I
hear
totally
you
frozen?
now. Now it's just the image that's a little off.
You can hear me now? Okay, let me try to scooch over a couple feet and maybe I'll get better reception.
Okay. I knew this thing was cursed.
I know. This live show of this book is doomed.
Oh, poor Steve. So Steve at the Lawn Gnome has been having a lot of trouble with his live streams and that YouTube just won't let him do it anymore. And so he said, hey, look at the bright side. At least you can do a live stream. I can't even live stream.
Oh.
Yeah. You know what? That's true. At least we've got this going.
Yeah. YouTube overall has been like kind of a disaster this last week.
Yeah. You good, Gisselle? Is she on mute?
I don't know.
It says it's on the Yeti. Now am I good?
Okay, we can hear you now.
You ruined everything.
Sorry.
I love you. He unplugged the microphone and he ruined it, but it's okay because he fixed it.
Okay.
Now I think I'm good. Sorry.
Okay. All good.
What's wrong? Oh my goodness. I love you. Okay, so my thoughts on the book.
Yes.
My initial reaction to this book was like 1 star. I hated it, but I'm not going to give it 1 star. I don't absolutely hate it. I just don't like it at all. Like, I don't know. Definitely my least favorite of the series. I just find The Lost Colony to be overlong. It's just like too drawn out. It's kind of tedious in my opinion. And like I know you were saying like you thought like there was just like so much going on in the second half, and while that's true, it's also like drawn out going on.
Yeah.
And so there's like so much, but I'm like, this is just like it's too much in one book. And I think that's what it is that it just feels way too long and there's just too much shoved in, and he needed to like pick and choose and not have like 4 different villains, and like one villain has his arc, then another villain and another villain. It's just like too much happening. And also I just find the Demon's Island to be like so boring. Like I don't enjoy reading about that island at all, and it's just like so dreary and boring, and I just like hate every second that we're there. So it's like even if number 1's like a good character or whatever, I still don't like reading about it because it's just like every other character just absolutely sucks, and the location is so boring to imagine, and I don't know, like I just don't like anything about it. Nothing about this book is pleasing to me. Minerva is the literal worst. And Foley's not even in this that much, and Mulch isn't in it enough. Mulch isn't only there like at the beginning for a little bit, and then a tiny bit in the middle. But like they spend like the last like third of the book on this like planet thing in another like dimension or whatever. It's like you don't even get to spend time with these other characters, and then the time jump and just oh my gosh, everything about this book just pisses me off. And that's my thoughts.
And that's that on that. Yeah, actually, that's my second point. What did you guys think of all of the new characters we were introduced to? There were too many of them.
Take them back.
I will keep number 1, but there were just so many. And I was like going through and trying to write like all of the new characters I could remember. And in this book, I can count 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 characters that we were just introduced to. Why?
Oh, I just remembered Doodah Day was one of them. I find him annoying too.
Oh my god, yeah. I didn't like Doodah Day. Billy Kong.
He's especially obnoxious on the audiobook, Doodah Day is.
Yep. Yeah, I will agree with that.
It's really annoying. Oh gosh.
Minerva, Abbott, Quan.
And, like, the fact that he plays like such a big role as well. Like, Mulch can do anything else anyway. Just say that, oh, all of a sudden between the last book and this book, he suddenly got really good at driving. Or like send Holly in. Or like they could have done something different. And it was like, we didn't need this character. He was just a mix of like Mulch and Holly.
Yeah, he was like a prissy Mulch. Not as good.
Yeah, like the worst. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't like Doodah Day. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna, like, the thing that makes me so mad about Minerva is that it feels like Owen Colfer was like trying to throw us a bone by saying like, here's another interesting female character. Because like we've been talking about how like Holly's great, but there aren't like a ton of female characters that are like consistently in the series. Like we all love Juliet, but she wasn't in this one either. I think she's in a couple of the later books, but she wasn't in this one. So it's like Owen Colfer was like half-assed, like trying to give us another like female character to like and to get invested in, but he did it so badly that I hate her, and I feel a little bad for hating her because it's like, I don't know. I thought like I was gonna like her a lot more than I did when I was younger, and I didn't. I still feel like she's really poorly characterized. Like I just like I don't know. I feel like I see what he was trying to do with her, like the fact that she wants to be recognized and that everyone just assumes she's like this 12-year-old girl who likes ponies and like whatever. I get that, but it was all like so surface level with her, and we're supposed to believe that she went through like this huge character change that took Artemis like the better part of like half of this series. And it's like by the end of the book, it's like, or even before the end with the time jump, it's like she's seen the error of her ways now because she didn't realize that the person she hired was like actually a bad person. And I'm like, you had to know. Like you hired him for like intimidation purposes. And she's like, I didn't know he was a murderer. Anyway.
Well, what did you think you were doing? Like, they're building her up to be like just as smart as Artemis, but she's really stupid.
She is.
Like, I guess she's supposed to be the Irene Adler sort of figure.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's the only one who can outsmart Artemis, but it's not that impressive when everyone in the book is just really stupid.
Yeah. And like, also, it's just like Artemis had to like work for all the stuff that he got as well. Like he put so much like he figured out these theories on his own, and he did all the stuff where basically it was just like handed to her in her lap. They were given all the stuff, and like she was just given everything to her. She didn't do anything.
Yeah. Well, and
that's just like, oh, I'm gonna go to this place that we already know because of this theory that somebody else gave us that this is gonna be here. It's like that doesn't take any effort at all. It just takes money.
And even when she like, oh well, I corrected the calculations and blah blah blah. It's like, unlike with Artemis, we don't see any of the planning part, which is kind of part of the fun, is like seeing how Artemis is gonna like get this all to work out. It's like we don't see any of that. So it's not even like exciting watching her trying to accomplish things when she actually does things, because it's like all the interesting stuff happens off page. And add that to the fact that as the readers, we know that Artemis's side is right and hers is wrong. You know, that's like she's like, or we're on Artemis and company's side because they're trying to stop, they have all the information, they're trying to stop the Demon Island from disappearing. And Minerva, it's like she's just trying to get them to study. And even though she ends up saying like, oh, I was wrong to want to put you in zoos, which is good, but even though she ends up reaching that conclusion, it's like the whole time we're reading it, like we're waiting for Minerva to get taken down, because we know that Artemis's team are the like good guys. Does that make sense? It's like there was no like poll of like, oh, who do we want to come out on top? It's like, well, it better be Artemis because they're the ones who are actually right about all of this.
They're gonna save lives. Chris says that he thought Minerva stuff was gonna go somewhere, and then she just gave up. was very disappointed by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly feel like she was there so Artemis Fowl could talk about puberty more.
Yeah.
Which
Oh my
I
gosh.
hated.
Here's the only thing about that I thought was funny is that he clearly has like no idea what to do about it. Like he's talking to Butler about it, and he's basically like, "So how do I turn off hormones?" And Butler's like, "You can't." And Artemis is like, "Ridiculous. I'm going to figure it out." Like the only thing that I thought was funny about it is like it was kind of entertaining seeing Artemis come up against something where it's like, you're just gonna have to deal with this. But I did think it got like really repetitive and annoying, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like he's saving Minerva's life not because he's like starting to I don't know, have more of a moral compass, but because he thinks she's hot. Like what?
Yeah, and I honestly am not against the idea of Artemis Fowl having a crush or being attracted to girls. I think the issue here is that she's not a good match for him. In my opinion. Like, it's one thing if he was just like, oh, she's really pretty, da 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 da, but like, he's really impressed with the stuff she's doing, and I don't know. I just felt like there was really no reason for him to be attracted to her, other than the fact that she was pretty and I guess supposed to be smart.
Well, it's like, it'd be like dating a less interesting version of yourself.
Yes.
So that doesn't sound, that wouldn't be exciting to read about. So yeah,
I also would have liked if it was spread out. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, and their banter was just like very cringy as well. Like there's no chemistry there. Like where he's like, "Oh, and I wrote this thing under this pseudonym," and she's like, "Oh, haha, that's so funny," and he's like, "No one's ever gotten that before," and I'm like, "Yeah, bullshit." Like, no, I'm like, you're just no very stupid people. Then it's not that funny or clever in the first place, and the fact that you are impressed that she gets it is just like so pathetic.
The bar is so low.
But on top of like everything else is that. Even if she was like an interesting love interest in the first place, which she isn't, I just really don't like being subjected to Artemis's like teenage thoughts that are it's just like very awkward. Like I don't like I've obviously never been a 14-year-old boy, but I just don't want to hear about it. So like even if it was like technically maybe done well, which it wasn't, it just like wasn't pleasant to read. Like I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, I guess maybe the point is like the books are aimed towards 14-year-old boys, so I guess like a boy could be reading this and go like, "Oh, I think girls are pretty too. I relate to that character." But as for me, I have never had any desire to enter the mind of a 14-year-old boy like pumped up on hormones, so it just comes off as really cringy and gross.
It could have been so much worse though. Like I have read some books that are written from the perspective of like 13 and 14-year-old boys, and it's like I finish them and it's like I feel like I need to take a shower. Like this is gross. Like, I did not need this amount of detail. But yeah, I do think they kind of belabored the point with that in this one. It's like, we get it. Like, he's a teenager now. He's having, like, thoughts and, like, hormonal feelings and all of this. But I feel like they repeated it.
Like, there are a lot of changes.
Yeah. It's like,
and I feel like, also, like, since it is still, like, a book for, like, kids, though, Owen Colfer obviously doesn't want to, like, take it too far in the descriptions as well. So then it just feels unrealistic because he's just like, she's really pretty. And it's like, yeah, like, you're not staring at her boobs or whatever. Like, it's like it didn't take it far enough to be believable. So then it was just, like, extra uncomfortable. Like, at least if you're going to put this awkward puberty crap in there, it should at least feel realistic.
I don't know if I could physically read Artemis Fowl staring at another woman's boobs.
No, I don't think I could handle that.
I would have burned the book at that point.
I'd be like,
which is why he didn't do it, but just don't put it in there at all then.
Yeah.
Or don't put in so much. At least, like, he could have just had the passing thought, like, wow, Holly's really pretty. And then just, like, look good. Which they did in the earlier books.
Like, they actually cut out, I think it's so interesting finding out, like, how they change different countries' editions of the books. Because I found out a couple of years ago that for the American edition of the Arctic Incident, they cut out a line that was like that. that was like Artemis looking at Holly and realizing like, I'm probably going to be attracted to her once I hit puberty, like kind of thing.
Yeah, that was in the audiobook version.
Yeah, and I guess they thought like American audiences are not ready for this. So it's like if it had been more gradual throughout the series, because I find it weird that it's like, okay, how many years, how much time is supposed to have passed between book 4 and book 5? Do we know that?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, I don't think it's a huge amount of time. So it was weird that there was like no indication of that in book 4, and then book 5, it's like suddenly it happens all the time. Like, I thought that was kind of weird too. Like, it could have been more gradual throughout the series instead of like all of a sudden Artemis can barely function because there's a pretty girl next to him. Like,
yeah, Chris said that that in the mind of Artemis was extremely tame, and his banter with Minerva was really badly done, and then he didn't feel realistic. Like Artemis didn't feel realistic to Christopher, but he doesn't think Artemis feels realistic anyway. But Christopher has been a 14-year-old boy before, so you can take his word for it.
Bookie Charm said, I think it was supposed to be funny, but it wasn't the kind of humor I care for. And like, same.
Yeah.
But actually, I did get a chuckle out of at least the title headings in this, or the chapter headings in this book. Like,
well, I found like the other stuff to be funny to me. Like I mentioned it when I was talking about my rating. One of the things that bumped this book up for me is that I genuinely found a lot of number one's thoughts and kind of like the things he says, I found them like actually pretty entertaining. Like there's the one where he's like walking towards the volcano crater and he sees the like wolf skull on a stick that's like the warning, and he's like looking at it and he's like, what does that even mean? Like, wolf barbecue, bring your own wolf. Like, that doesn't mean anything. And it was just like such a like weird and absurd thing to think that I like enjoyed that. So I actually feel like the rest of the book for me was funnier than some of the other ones. Like, I like the humor in this a lot more than Pecs and Chips. Like, a lot more. But yeah, it's like I don't see why we had to have some of the humor come from Artemis in like having like, I don't know, going through puberty or like whatever it was supposed to be happening.
Yeah. But going off of Minerva, we can talk about Billy, everyone's favorite character, Billy Kong. That beloved fan favorite who absolutely 100% needed to be in this book.
Yeah.
I think I would take Pecs and Chips over Billy Kong.
Oh, me too. I would take just about anybody over Billy Kong.
Honestly, the worst. Like, everything about his storyline is just cringy AF.
Like, it felt so useless to give him this backstory about demons. Like,
except it wasn't even really about demons.
It wasn't. It was his brother lying to him because he was like hooking up with a gangster's girlfriend. And I don't see why we needed to give him this like deep-seated issue to like try and excuse that, because like then they talk about how like, oh, he eventually convinced himself that his beloved brother had lied to him, and like this messed him up for a while and made it easier for him to hurt people. And I'm like, you still killed people. Like, I don't feel that bad for you.
And I don't know. I feel like the world, like, I think did they mention demon warlocks before this book, or did they just mention warlocks? I'm not sure.
The first mention of them.
I think, yeah, they talked about warlocks. I don't remember them talking about demons.
Okay, because like I feel like the only reason they are demons and not just another race of fairies that decided to like peace out is the fact that us calling something a demon and like cult and human culture or whatever is something that happens. And so if the brother wasn't being like, ooh, devils are running around the city and stuff, like demons are running around the city, like if that wasn't that thing, then they could have been any other race of, and like, why are they demons? I think it's only because like Billy, like otherwise they could have been anything else. They could have been like hobgoblins. I want a hobgoblin warlock. That sounds effing awesome. But like, it could have been so many other things, but it's just like, it feels like it's just demons, at least in my opinion, because then we could pull in Billy and it's like, this is useless.
See, I love any book with demons. I don't know why, but that is my bread and butter.
They're not even demons, though. They're just stupid.
They're just boys. I didn't think they did enough with the demons, in my opinion. But going on the Billy Kong thing, I think he could have been taken out of the storyline completely and nothing major would have changed, really.
Yes.
He was the sexy lamp in this story.
I feel like his character only existed to strap the bomb onto Holly and make them go to Hybris.
And that
was the only thing he did, really.
And also to redeem Minerva as well.
Right. Yeah.
But he should have just made her. Owen Colfer should have just made her evil till the end, or not evil, but just in opposition until the end.
Yeah, it's
instead of turning her into this damsel in distress. Are you effing kidding me? What's the point of even having her?
Why was she there? Yeah. Well, and also I feel like it backfired too, because if Billy Kong was supposed to make Minerva more sympathetic, we already kind of talked about how it's did you not know you were hiring an assassin? Did you really not know this? So it makes her seem stupid, which is literally her only personality trait besides being pretty is that she's apparently as smart as Artemis, even though she's kind of not. So it's what was the point of any of this? I wish he either would have kept Minerva a villain, like Gisselle said, or that we would have actually had it turn out to be oh, there are other people besides Artemis who have been interacting with the fairy world, and maybe she was genuinely trying to save the fairy or save the demon island. Either make her kind of a misunderstood character that is then oh, I didn't realize that she was actually maybe one of the good guys, or keep her a villain that maybe we could develop later. But don't try and fit all of that into one book.
That would have been so sick. I wish she had done that.
Yeah.
Where she secretly figured out all this stuff on her own, and that the demon island is collapsing, and all this stuff. That would have been so awesome. I'm really sad that you brought that up now.
Sorry. This whole thing should have been spread out over several books, at least Minerva's character development. Then you'd have genuine actual time to develop a genuine relationship between Artemis and Minerva, where you can make her a good, fully functioning character and have their relationship not be cringy and gross.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to get into later books too much, but
yes,
I feel people should know who are reading the series for the first time. Don't hold out hope that Minerva's going to be involved. Honestly, I think people should know that. But.
I just rewatched The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals last night, and I just have this line stuck in my head from it where he's "You're fucking useless," whatever, and he says the character's name, "You're fucking useless, Paul." I'm just oh, you're fucking useless, Minerva.
She is.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. So I don't know. You needed to give Cara. You needed to give Owen Colfer some pointers on this story. Just help him rewrite it, because really, what does she do in the later books that is of significance?
Nothing.
Yeah, you could easily rewrite this entire book, edit most of the content, keep the ending the same, and it would not affect the rest of the series. This is very much a standalone book.
Yeah, although I think number one, he does come into later books.
Yeah, but if you keep the ending the same, and keep that continuity, although the ending of this book I feel isn't very continuity with the rest of the series. It's really a mess. But if you had kept a lot of the stuff but also changed a lot of the stuff, I think it very easily could be swapped out and improve the story a lot.
Yeah.
We could also keep some of our favorite characters in this story, because Gisselle pointed out, there was almost no Mulch or Foley. Where were they? I would have preferred them over Doodah Day, Billy Kong, or Minerva.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I complain about Mulch a lot, but I really missed him in this book.
Yeah.
He's just like at the beginning, like hanging out with Holly, and then he's just like, he digs a tunnel, and that's all he does, and he spits on a kid. Like,
oh yeah. Whoa, wait. I think I remember that note I took. Like, dwarves can do anything now.
Oh yeah.
What was it his saliva could do? It was
a sedative. Yeah.
Where did that come from?
I don't know. Like, why do they need that? How is that part of their evolution that like they need sedative saliva?
Dwarf anatomy is just, it's based off of convenience. What is convenient to Owen Colfer? That's how he decides what his dwarves can do.
Yep. And we've like accepted this. So as Taylor was saying, it's like, why didn't you just give Mulch a new power that like just say he learned how to drive instead of bringing Doodah Day in?
That like he was like maybe in the past because he's like almost effed up so many missions by driving like a crazy person that maybe he was like, oh, now that I'm out of jail, my record is free. Artemis really helped clear everything up, and I've gotten like a lot of stuff from like helping the police, and I can do what I want now. I'm gonna take some time for personal development. Like, that would have been so funny. Yeah. He's like, I've been taking driving lessons.
It's like he shows up and he's like, I've got a driver's license now, and everyone's like,
he's like, I had free time on my hand now that I wasn't in jail for 300 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed the same thing, Taylor, where it's like, I actually missed Mulch in this book.
Yeah.
Because the scenes that he is in are like really funny. Like when he's like pissing off Foley for no reason and everything, like those were really enjoyable. And then to have that contrasted with like Doodah and like all these other characters that don't matter, it's like, oh, can't we go back to the basics? Like
I feel like especially since in the last book we lost one of our main characters, especially you should use the extra time in this even longer book. Yeah, you can introduce a few new characters, but also spend time on the characters you already have now that there's more like page time opened up.
Yeah,
that's a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, I actually was really interested in the like Holly Mulch private investigator like team up. Like I wanted more of that, and we like Mulch and Holly barely interacted in this.
Yeah, it was weird.
Also, Foley has a girlfriend.
Yes.
How do you feel about that, Gisselle?
Well, I totally understand because like there's like what like less, is it 300 or is it like 50? There's like barely any centaurs left. There's race is like about to die out pretty much. So
when did they say that?
I don't remember the first or second book.
Oh,
I can look it up. I can fact check myself, but like the centaurs are a dying breed, it's stated. And if he finds somebody of the opposite sex to reproduce with, although can you imagine Foley as a dad?
No.
Like I'm not gonna get mad about that for you like saving your race. If she's tolerable.
Yeah, but I could make I mean, not that I'm per se on the Foley and Mulch boat, but one could make the argument that you don't need a girlfriend to like I guess increase the amount of your race, but that's neither here nor there. That's me overthinking things.
I don't know. I just like I typed in Artemis Fowl centaur, and centaurs are one of the people and are a species of fairy, whatever. There are fewer of them than any other fairy species.
Okay, good to know.
I wonder why.
Maybe because they're half horse and nobody wants to get with a half horse. Because I feel like gnomes and pixies could make it work.
But like Lucky Charm said that she was still in disbelief about Root, but then they mentioned it again and it broke her heart again. And that's kind of like Gisselle, what you were saying about it's like we had a major character death in the fourth book, and it's like we should spend some time.
And you don't even see like the trauma of it as well, because like you do like Holly's grieving throughout the fourth book, but she's also in a super like high danger situation the whole time, and she never really has time to like sit down and breathe. And same thing with Foley, is like they're trying to save the world from like the humans discovering fairies, like. And then in this book, you don't even see like that sadness or grief. It's just like they mention him like once, Like, and then like that's it, and it's not like dwelt on at all, which I feel like is, again, not using your page space very well.
Yeah, I would say like for the fourth one, I actually felt like the grief Holly was going through felt pretty, I don't know, realistic, because like you were saying, it's like she didn't have a lot of time to just like sit down and process, but it was clearly like affecting her even throughout these really like traumatic experiences and everything. So I guess I didn't notice that they weren't spending time on it in this one, because it does feel like this book is set. I mean, I'm like, you'd still be grieving. So I don't know. I'm not saying that like she should have gotten over it by now, but I feel like this book felt distant enough in time that it didn't strike me as like really weird that she wasn't.
But didn't you, I don't know, did you just say that you thought it was like such a close enough to the last book that Artemis, we should have seen some of his like feelings and emotions? Like, so it's like
no, I know. And I'm thinking about that, but like it seems like Artemis is like in the middle of puberty now or something. And like that felt weird because we didn't see any like, I don't know, like any like lead up to it. And I don't know exactly how long this book is after that one. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I felt like we had spent a lot of time in the fourth book about how it was affecting Holly. And even at the end of that one, like we have his funeral. So I don't know. I feel like we spent more time on her grief than we tend to get in like a lot of books I read. Like I feel like a lot of books I read, it's like a major character dies and then everyone just like moves on. But yeah, like Gisselle, like you're right. I mean, I guess it would make sense for her to like still be, for it to come up more often in this book, but she also like wasn't at the LEP anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that like affected it too, but yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess it should have come up more.
Yeah.
I guess we can talk about that ending. That ending, though.
I knew what you were gonna say, and I was already cringing.
The time jump / the twins / the stupid eye thing. Horrible. Hate.
Yeah.
I was telling Cara this. I was like, I don't know, like as far as like creepy as it is, I kind of like that they switched eyes. Like it's like really like effed up and like really creepy if you think about it for more than like a second, but it's like also kind of cute because they always have like part of them with each other.
There was actually a lot of body horror in this book.
Yes. Yeah.
Like her eye switching and then Artemis Fowl's finger switching.
Oh my gosh, that irritates me so much.
So like, wait, was it like the middle finger and this finger that just switched?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you notice that like because that happened, he basically like gave Abbott the bird when he like the little spark thing jumped off his finger? It says like he raised his index finger, and I'm like, it's actually his middle finger. So.
No, I didn't realize that.
I'm surprised that he didn't like mess with stuff in the time flow to try to like switch the fingers, because I think he could have thought about it, and it seems like something he would have done if he's like stealing magic, like and doing all this other bull crap, that he didn't like switch the fingers back. Because I feel like he was way too not distraught about that. He's just like, oh, this is gonna just hamper everything. I'm gonna have to relearn how to type, and everything's gonna be really funky and off, and this is awful, and this is gonna like affect your entire life, that now that you've done this, like it's gonna be like really weird to adjust to. And he's just like, oh, that's weird. It's like, what's wrong with you? Like I feel like he would be more annoyed about that, and he's like didn't care.
Maybe he's like, well, my piles of money can fix this, I'll just get surgery.
That's right. Piles of money fix so many things.
I guess he could cut them off and have Holly regraft them.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, honestly, that's probably what I would do. I'm like, I don't want this. Please fix them.
Yeah.
I just have this image of you going, that's weird.
Holly, get over here. Like, I do want to mention, like, and Taylor, I don't know if this was something you were going to talk about, but before we get to the very end, Holly being dead for like 2.5 minutes before they go back in time. Because, like, here's the thing. Is like, remember we were talking about when Root died? And when I first read that book, I was like, he's dead now. So I guess that, like, broke my trust in Owen Colfer. Because when I read this book for the first time, I was like, genuinely wondering if Holly was going to stay dead. Because when this one came out, like, when these last few Artemis Fowl books came out, like I was reading them as they were published, and we never knew if there was going to be another one. Like every single book was like, this could be the end of the series. So I was honestly reading that like, is there a possibility she's going to stay dead and like Minerva's going to be the new like female main character? Like I was honestly wondering about that. So even though like reading it now, I'm like, of course they're not going to keep her dead. She's like the other lead character. When I first read it, I was fooled a little bit. Like I was kind of convinced it could happen. And like when Artemis, like he doesn't even look at her and you don't know why that is. And it turns out it's because he's already like figuring out a plan. So like, I don't know, I guess it's like kind of cheesy, but I actually feel like the death scene was like pretty effective because even knowing that she's okay, I hate reading it. I hate having Holly be dead for like 2.5 minutes.
I just thought it was kind of like unnecessary. I'm like, there's already just like so much going on, and this is already giving me a headache reading this scene because it's such like sporadic and everything. Like, do you have to kill everyone too, and then do like? I get it's like supposed to like drive tension, but I just like hate everything on that island. So I was just like, this is boring.
Okay, so then I don't feel so bad saying that I didn't realize Holly had died. I feel like at that point in the audiobook, I had checked out. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then
everyone dies.
Yes. And so I was like logging onto the Wikipedia page to remind myself before today's live show. And they were like, Holly died. And I was like, what now? When did that happen?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
This book just really tested my patience. Yeah.
I did like the not that I liked the death included because it does feel kind of pointless. Like it just drags things out for like no reason. Because they obviously fix it, which is good. I didn't want Holly to stay dead, but you're kind of like, why did this even need to happen then? But the thing I did like about it, besides the fact that it actually shocked me when I was little, is it does show you like how important Holly and Artemis are to each other. Because like they fight a lot and they like piss each other off to no end, but I don't know, it's like they're such like fire forged friends, you know, like they're bonded through trauma, and it's like seeing Artemis lose somebody important to him like right in front of him. I mean, like that happened with Butler in the Eternity Code, which like they fixed, but I don't know, like I found the like emotional stakes, I guess, to be effective. Like I guess that's why I didn't hate that scene as much as you guys seem to, is like because it did show me something about their relationship.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That he likes that Artemis got some magic, and he thought it could be a cool dynamic, but the time travel thing, he didn't have strong feelings about. Besides, like, oh, that's weird. I feel like coming from someone who's read some of the later books, though, and the inconsistencies between this book and the next book and then the book after that, I think is also like why it kind of irritates me so much, the time jump, because it affects some things. And then maybe I'm misremembering more though.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's as bad as I thought it was, but like between this book and then book 6 and then book 6 and book 7, it's just like he can't make up his mind what he wanted to do.
Yeah. I'm also just like in general, I'm not super into time travel.
Same.
Like I just don't like it. I don't find it interesting most of the time. So I think that's one of the reasons why this book is not one of my favorites either. And especially like, so they're on the island, which I also didn't like that scene. And I was talking to Gisselle about it earlier, and I was like, I forgot how long they're on this island. Like it's so long. It's like the last chunk of the book. They're on this like volcano or whatever. And I got like so confused trying to figure out like how that time jump worked, because like I kind of get why it would affect the plasma rays or whatever, because they're like set to dissolve after a certain amount of time. So I'm like, okay, so the time jump backwards or forwards or however, it means that the laser beams don't hold together for as long as they're supposed to. I'm like, okay, I can accept that. Like that makes sense with this like weird light powered weapon. But then I don't understand how you can affect things in the past like that. Because that to me seems different from, oh, the time jump is affecting are time-sensitive weapon. Like, I get that. But that seems really different from, like, you can kill someone in the past, and so their murders never happened. Like, I don't know. Am I just, like, not getting it? Or was that...
I mean, time travel is always a tricky element to add into a book, and I just think it overcomplicates things. So I feel like you explained it in the best way possible because I didn't get it at all. Time travel things just like go right over my head. I'm just like, okay, sure.
Yeah. I don't know. And I feel like
whatever.
Everybody like approaches time travel different as well. And it's like, if you're not going to take the time to like flesh it out and like really spend a lot of time on it, then like, and like really do a lot to it. I don't know. Cause like 2 of my favorite video games of all time are very much related to that. Like Chrono Trigger is my favorite video game of all time. And it's Chrono Trigger, like it's a time jump plot, but like it's really fleshed out and it's really well delved into, and there's so much going on and there's so many nuances and complications and all this stuff. Whereas like with this, it's just like it's a kid's book. And like you need to spend more time on it to make sure that it makes sense and don't just like use it willy-nilly at the end. Like you should have been building this the whole time and like really like making sure that we understood what was going on, or like don't put it in at all.
Yeah. Well, and Bookie Charm, she just said that she tends to like time travel, but she feels like Colfer is relying on it as a plot device again and again to like fix or explain things. Like just because time travel and like that's it. That's the only thing he does. And it's funny because like from our previous discussions, like I'm clearly willing to like suspend my disbelief for these books a lot more than I normally do because I enjoy the other things about them so much. Like I love the characters. This is like one of my favorite series and I reread it a lot. So I understand it's inconsistent and it's not going to bother me. But I think the reason this one does bother me is, for one thing, it's like one of my least favorite in the series. So I'm like more nitpicky about it. But I also think because it is time travel, and that's something that, like you guys were saying, it's like, it's so complicated and it's so easy to make it like not make sense that it stands out to me. Like, I don't know, like I'm willing to accept like Mulch gets a new power every book. I'm like, convenient, but it doesn't like irritate me. This one like irritates me because, yeah, like Gisselle was saying, it feels like he should have been setting this up earlier. And I feel like there's a difference in how like TV shows and books tend to do time travel. Because I feel like in TV shows, maybe this is just the ones that I've seen, but it's like if you're watching any kind of sci-fi or fantasy or like whatever kind of like speculative TV show, I feel like you almost always end up with at least one time travel episode, like sometimes more than one. And I feel like when you watch those, you just have to kind of, I've just realized I have to kind of accept that it's not really going to make sense with the continuity of the rest of the show. Like, because they only have one episode to explain the rules for it, you know? Yeah. So I feel like I've gotten used to kind of going like, all right, that doesn't really make sense because then this episode afterwards wouldn't have happened or like whatever. So I feel like I've given them a pass. But I feel like with books, maybe I'm like a harsher critic with it because like, I don't know why that would be. Maybe because like there's more continuity, I think, or there's supposed to be between books in a series versus like an episodic, like you watch 1 hour a week of this show and then you forget about it by the next week, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this is definitely something we can dive more into as well in the next book because it's called The Time Paradox. So there's some kind of weird time crap going on in that one as well. But I don't know. I also just found it really convenient in this one as well. Just like the timing of everything, that it's like the island has been stable for so long. And then like in like these 2 days, just like everything falls apart, and Foley had no idea what was going on like up until then, and like all this stuff, and it's just like, oh, very convenient that you get to the island like 2 minutes before it's gonna like die, and like all this stuff. It's just like, it was just like so much like packed in at once. It was like so dramatic when like it didn't feel like organic.
And I think part of that comes out of this need, which I see in a lot of books actually, to like, the author feels like they have to make the protagonist like the center or the catalyst for every interesting thing that happens, like at the expense of all the other characters in the book. It's like, like you were saying about Foley, it's like, how could Foley have had no idea this was going on? Like, yeah, we know Artemis is really smart, but like maybe like Foley had miscalculated one thing, and he didn't, like, he had like a contingency plan set up, but he didn't realize it would be like right now. Like they kind of allude to that, but I just don't see the need for like, oh, Artemis is the only one who had figured this out. Well, and then Minerva, which is like also weird, but it just seems so like strange to me that it's like you can have a really interesting and really smart character who doesn't have to be like the only one who gets it like every single time, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
So should we talk about those last few pages?
Yeah.
I hate that.
Everything about it is just wrong. First of all, they ruined Butler with a horrible beard.
And a man bun.
Yeah.
That was a personal attack against me. I'm very offended. And then we've got the time loop thing, 3 years have passed. So wait, actually, I do have a question about this. So at the end of the book, 3 years have passed between when Artemis and Holly go to the island and time loop stuff happens, and then when Artemis comes back. Has Artemis aged?
No.
Mm-mm. He has not.
So how old is Minerva now?
She's his age now.
She's 15 and he's 15.
Okay.
She's 12.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I find it a little weird because I know technically 14 and 12 when they first met wasn't like a big deal, but it's also a little weird.
I know.
I don't know. I don't feel like 15 and 12 is like too crazy.
Anytime it's like middle school and high school, I'm a little weirded out. Like
because the maturity is so different.
Yeah. Well, and also like Minerva she sort of acts like immature as well. Like, I mean, like a believable 12-year-old. I'm not saying it's like unrealistic, but when she's like, "No, Papa, my prize is escaping," and she like stamps her foot and like throws a tantrum, and it's like,
Over the
yeah.
top. I don't know. Like,
Also,
I don't find it like too cringy, but it's like not ideal.
It's So another thing I hated about the ending. So he has twin brothers now, and I hated like the first time I read this book. I was reading that and I'm like, he's gonna come back and like his parents had another kid, and that is what happened. And it just makes me so mad because like they're like, I don't know if we find this out at the end of this one or the beginning of this one, beginning of the next one, but it's not a big deal. I think they're like a year and a half old or something like that. So I'm like, your parents gave up on you coming back like real quick. Like, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I just don't understand. Like I guess we'll just like replace him. And I know that's not what happened. And like, obviously, I've never been in the position of like one of your kids goes missing, and like, what do you do? So I probably shouldn't even be like commenting on this, but that just has always struck me as like really just unfair or
yeah.
Like, I feel like it was just supposed to show us how much time has passed, and like Artemis is going to have a hard time adjusting to this world that has been like 3 years ahead of him. Mm-hmm. But it's like, did we have to do that with like babies?
Chris did point out when I was like talking about this, because I don't love the brothers either, but he did point out that he's like, maybe it was like not planned.
Okay.
Which is always a possibility that maybe, I don't know, because like very recently have they gotten back together and they're in a lot better like mental states. They're having a good like healthier relationship again and stuff as well. So it could have just been like, whoops.
I guess. I still find it ridiculous.
I'm just pointing out what Christopher said.
Yeah.
Like, actually, when we get into book 6, we're going to talk about this more, because I actually have a lot of issues with Angeline's choices. Like, I don't like Angeline at all. Like, I feel sympathy for her. I feel bad for her. And this is completely separate from her mental health struggles at like the beginning of the series. So I don't want to say that. But we get some backstory on her, on like her behavior. And I have like a big problem with it. And I think this book was kind of like the beginning of that, where I'm like, so you just moved on? Okay.
I mean, the Fowls have never really been great parents. I mean, how do you not know your like 12 to 14-year-old son is just gallivanting? Like, at least in the first two books, there's like a narrative reason. But afterwards, it's not even just a single mother who's had like struggling with her mental health. Now it's a mother and father who are doing presumably really well health-wise. Like, you don't know where your son is?
Yeah. Yep. Which makes it extra weird that like they just accepted he was gone so quickly. It's like, well,
yeah,
guess we'll have twins.
And they visit Butler in his weird home, and he's reading now.
Yeah, I actually liked that. I'm like, oh, like Butler's he finally has free time.
He can do. I did find it weird that Butler was like, oh, Minerva's become a very pretty young girl. Like, I know he didn't mean it like that, but I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I also just like don't find it believable though. Like, I can't imagine that like after he sees Artemis disappear, it's that he's just like, okay, I'm gonna go like sit down for 3 years and just like read.
Yeah.
Like a lot of fiction and stuff. Like, I can see other people doing that. Like, heck, I would do that, but like I don't see him doing that. Like, I can't see him not trying to stay as active as possible.
Yeah. I think that's also why I was very disappointed, because the book is established that Butler and Artemis don't have a normal bodyguard charge relationship. Like, Butler very much sees Artemis as a sort of son to him, and more so than his own parents. You know, he's more in Artemis's life. So I don't understand. I think it would have made more sense narratively and would have been a better, I guess, it would have been more in character for him to have spent those 3 years maybe like tracking down his contacts and seeing like if they have any idea where Artemis is, or teaming up with Mulch and Foley to try and figure out where Artemis and Holly are, which I would have loved to read. But like, he just gave up
somewhat, because I think he is in contact with Foley, and Foley is the one that's like, this is where they're going to be coming back around this time. Like, he does give him that idea, which is why he's hanging out like right next to him. It's like, this is where he's going to be. Yeah. So I'm just going to sit here until he gets back.
Yeah. Well, and also like, I think Butler, when Foley tells him that, I think Butler does kind of realize, like, there's nothing I can do, like, absolutely nothing. Like, they're trapped in another world in a time pocket. Like, I couldn't get to them if I tried. So I wonder if that's why he was maybe like the only thing he could do is wait for them so that he's like there the second they get back. But yeah, it's so hard, I think, for authors when you build in this like massive time gap. It's so hard to like give the reader all of this like backstory development almost. It's like, because you're trying to like fill them in, and it's only like a couple pages where we find out like what happens to everyone. And it's just, it always feels a little bit like, I don't know, not artificial. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like it always feels a little bit strange when they're like, here's what you missed while you were gone. Like, yeah, because you don't see any of it.
I just don't feel like this book is well thought out at all, because I feel like also it's like at the end of book 4, he like decides that he doesn't want like Holly to be part of the LAP anymore. But then it's like in book 5, he's like, actually, I do want her to be in the LAP again. How can I make that happen in the next book? Oh, I know. I'll just make everything change while they're gone, and now there's a cool person in charge again. So then Holly can be welcome back if she wants it. Yeah. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to fix everything while the characters are gone and like all these issues, and just like pretend it never happened. And now everything will be set up all nicely and wonderfully in the next book. And it's like, okay, like that's convenient.
Yeah, no, I have a feeling that Owen Colfer he didn't plan out the Artemis Fowl books as a series. I think he just wrote them as he went along. Yeah. And then after, Holly left the LAP, during this book, he was like, I want her back. And, I don't get the idea that he just planned out the series as a whole. I think he's just playing it by ear.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Yeah. Well, and like the first 4 books, I feel like had more of a cohesive arc. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he knew when he was writing the first couple, like that he wanted Opal to come back as a villain, and he wanted to have some kind of mind wipe thing. He might have even known that he wanted to kill Julius. But yeah, I feel like the last half of the series doesn't feel as connected to each other, which I think we talked about. Did we talk about this for the last
We
live
talked
show? I
about
don't
it
remember.
just when we were talking last week.
Okay, we were just talking about to each other. And I think it doesn't bother me with some of the books in the last half of the series because I enjoy them. So even though they feel more like one-off adventures, like we talked about like book 7 gets like a really bad rap, but it's kind of one of my favorites for a lot of like some reasons that are like kind of silly and some reasons that are like, I don't know, I guess like more like specific to like my experiences reading it. But that one, even though it is kind of a weird adventure compared to the first 4 books, I still like it, so it doesn't bother me that it doesn't feel as cohesive. Whereas this book, because it's one of my least favorites, I'm like, it doesn't even make sense with the rest of the series. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very inconsistent about it.
Yeah, I guess I also feel like going off of a book that was as strong as book 4 was, this is just really disappointing, and it feels like a first draft. Like, he wrote it and he should have revised it another time, or his editor should have told him, get rid of the Billy Kong storyline, make everything a lot cleaner, clean up Minerva, and so on. Especially since the last book was just so emotional, and it's probably my second favorite in the series. And this one doesn't hit home as much.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
And when I first read this, I thought like there was a possibility this was how the series was going to end. So like imagine having this be the end of
it would be like a Game of Thrones ending, just bad all around.
Yeah.
Every time I reread this book, though, I always skip like the whole like last third, like all the stuff on the island. I always just skip it. Like as soon as they're like in the like in like looking at the art pieces and stuff, I'm just like, meh. And I would always like skip and just like read the last few pages and then just skip this whole last half of the book and then just like move right on to the next book. So like it was quite interesting for me reading that whole section. Like I didn't like it as much, like I didn't like it before either, but it was just like, it's good I reread that part instead of just like skipping it like I normally do.
Yeah.
I just like it so much.
Yeah, it's almost like but we were talking about how like the new characters don't really matter in the long run, and I've just been thinking about it and I'm like, this book would not, like, you would not have had to change any of the main plot if you completely remove Minerva, Billy Kong, like that whole like chunk of the characters, like nothing would change. Like he could have just made this a normal like Artemis and co have to like go and save the world again. And I wonder if he did it differently because like I know some people like were saying that like I have a couple friends who were like reading the series and they actually like stopped reading it after book 4 because they were like, oh, they were all starting to feel the same. And I kind of get that there's like a similar setup because Artemis is usually the one who knows what's going on. But I wonder if like this book was almost Colfer's like response to that, and he's like, I'll do something really different, and then everyone hates it. Like, please go back to normal.
What you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we have any final thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah. Says it all. Just okay. I'm excited to get to the next book.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because the cover is so much prettier than this one. Like, it's so pretty. Even though I read the audiobooks. I dropped. There we go. Yeah, see? Look at how pretty this is. It's got like the little raised splotches, and it's so big.
I'm really anxious about the next book because there's just a lot in it, but like also my favorite scene from the entire series is in that book. So
yeah,
it's gonna be emotionally raw. Like I don't know what words I'm trying to say. It's gonna be emotional.
I'm so nervous now.
It's gonna be really emotional. I'm like thinking of more and more things. I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. I know. I don't remember where book 6 falls in my ranking at this moment because it has some of my favorite things in it and like some of my least favorite things in the series, like scene wise. So like I'm also really nervous because I remember this book also being like an emotional ride. So
Ooh.
we'll see. And it's gonna be on your channel, Gisselle, right?
Yes.
Oh, we
And
should announce the date.
yeah,
too?
we'll set the date right
You
now.
said the 30th, right? We talked last week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
30th. It's the last Sunday of the month.
Yep.
I'm like
Yep.
having like heart palpitations just like thinking about it.
Hopefully, we'll have better things to say about this one. I'm very excited.
I'm really nervous I'm gonna hate it.
I mentioned this to you guys before, but obviously we weren't live. But reading through the first like 30% of the book, I remember that I had read that, and I had just stopped inexplicably, and I don't know why I did. But yeah, so officially, The Time Paradox will be the first book that I just haven't touched in the series.
Okay.
So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on it.
Do you guys want to talk about number 1? And what you used to... Oh, we never talked about him at all, really. But also, like, what you used to call him.
Oh, yeah. So, because we don't write number 1 like they do over in, I guess, Europe or the UK, I thought his name was pronounced N-degree-1. And I was just so confused. And it wasn't until I listened to the audiobook that I realized it was number 1, not N-degree-1.
Because you had read part of it as a kid, and that's how
Yeah.
you pronounce it in your head. Like, not as an adult, you picked this up and tried to read it. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
this was N-degree-1.
I had like a similar experience where for the longest time I pronounced it N-O-1 because I had never seen the word number abbreviated without a period after the O. So I guess I just assumed it was like a tiny 0 or like the letter O or something. I don't know why I thought, like, I was so sure that it was N-O-1 to the point where a few years after I had read the book, my sister just tells me, she's like, "You told me to pronounce that wrong." And I'm like, "What?" And she says, "It's number 1, as in it's the numeral 1." And I was like, "Oh." So my younger sister had to tell me I was wrong about it.
It would have been cool if you thought it was like pronounced no one.
No one, yeah.
Haha.
It would have made more sense, but N-degree-1 or N-O-1 is also good.
Sorry, I have to let my cat out. 1 second.
Go for it. I feel like super quickly before we sign off, we should also discuss the change in date for the movies, because that was the whole point of this readathon or read-along, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, originally our plan was to start in January and read 1 book a month until the Artemis Fowl film adaptation was released in August. 8 books, 8 months. And then with the Disney Fox merger, the Artemis Fowl film was pushed to, I want to say, May 2020.
I think so.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So that's where that is. So, oops.
Yeah, so I think like, yeah, we're gonna keep our plan the same. I mean, we're gonna keep the schedule. It's just gonna be, now you're gonna have longer to, I don't know, think about and discuss the series before the movie comes out. But
yeah, I mean, also, I know Gisselle didn't have any plans to watch it.
No, we'll see. But I probably wouldn't until it like comes out, because I don't really want to like spend the money going to a movie theater for it. But plus, I just don't like movie theaters in general. But also, the graphic novel is coming out this month. They're doing a revamp of the graphic novel because the art from the old one was so terrible and sucks, and I really hate it. So they're coming out with a new one. I think it comes out like the 25th or something. So keep your eye out for later this month. The graphic novel is coming out, and I know my bookstore has it on order, so I'm definitely going to read it.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't actually realize until recently that the artist for this new graphic novel is somebody who I've read their work before, right? I've looked at their work before. I forget the artist's name, but he did the 2nd volume of Wires and Nerve, the Lunar Chronicles graphic novels, which like I actually really enjoyed those 2. I know they've gotten kind of like mixed reviews, but I really liked the 2nd one because I feel like I just liked his art a lot more than the artist who did the 1st one. Like, I don't know why they switched in between the 2 novels, but like they had different artists. So I'm actually like even more excited now because I'm like, oh, like I already know I like his stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So Chris said that he used to pronounce Harry Potter or Hermione as Hermione. And I like to say, don't worry, because I thought it was pronounced Hermione. So thank goodness.
I feel like everyone pronounced her name wrong until movies. I mean, like, I listened to the audiobook. So I never did. But I feel like everyone I knew, like, was always saying it wrong. Like, I remember when the movie came out and I heard so many people were like, I've been saying that wrong. Like, oh.
Yeah. See, I watched the movies first, but I knew about Hermione sort of like tangentially. Like, you know, people would talk about it, or I would see it written down like Harry, Ron, and Hermione, but I thought it was pronounced Hermione for the longest time.
Yeah.
So, unless you guys have anything else to say about the book, we can go ahead and wrap up. Or did we cover all of our bases?
I think
that's it.
So. Yeah, I think we covered, like, I've had written down a couple things too. I think we pretty much, I think Taylor, your notes pretty much hit.
I just liked all the imp puns as like chapter headers. Like, that gave me such a giggle. I was just like, oh, the punniness, it's so delightful.
Yeah.
I always like looked forward to like the next one. I'm like, oh, please be another good imp pun.
I feel like I missed out on those imp puns with the audiobook because I think they just did like chapter 1, chapter 2.
No, they were in the audiobook.
They're in there?
Yeah.
What?
Because I listened.
I'm sad. Now I'm sad I missed out.
Go back and read the chapter headers. Just
yeah.
They're very funny.
They're pretty good, yeah.
So I think we're good, unless you guys have anything else. Or well, thank you.
June 30th, just to reiterate. June 30th, 2 p.m. PST, 5 p.m. EST on my channel.
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll be reading book 6, The Time Paradox. Yep. Super excited. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you so much for joining us. Bye. You guys want to say bye?
Bye.
Great ending.
Bye.
Bye.